individual student was allowed to come back to the school.
Yeah, you heard their reaction. Nobody could believe what they had just heard Emily say.
So after this, we learned about it after several FOIA requests. Our undercover unit finally obtained the police report detailing the second incident. You remember the Chippewa Falls, the Manifesto story? That took place. We actually sent Gerald. He did a good job, went out to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And then we found out about a second incident at the same school. And I think this also happened because you guys send your tips to lwctips@protonmail.com. This new one is really pretty shocking.
Yeah.
Right, Gerald? You met with a mother.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a follow-up to Mug Club Undercover. So let me give you a quick recap because this is your work and your support. February 7th, right, we published this police report that related to a thwarted, thank God, school shooting in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And parents weren't notified about this. The student was put on leave for a few weeks, and the parents didn't know. And this was during the period, the danger zone, where they were actively looking to recruit people. They were assembling their accessories, the raw materials needed, and actually had plans, maps, schedules to carry out a would-be shooting. Parents did not know. February 27th, there was finally a meeting there, I guess, with the teachers that they had to move to a larger venue because so many parents were upset. Gerald went out to Wisconsin and confronted the school board about that decision to withhold the information from the parents.
Because in this police report, the student was actively recruiting somebody to be their Dylan to the Eric. Going to recreate Columbine. You had an exact time and day. You had means of doing this. You had plans. You had opportunity. And now you might actually have an accomplice out there. Nobody here knew that. Only you knew that. That's a big problem for these parents because they're their kids. You're entrusted to take care of them for a short period of time. They take care of them and protect them their entire lives. The information belongs to them.
Now, Gerald, when you were there at the school board meeting, tell us about the people who don't remember. A parent came forward.
Yeah, so a parent came forward and actually was talking. I can't remember if it was before or after me, but I remember sitting in my chair and just going, "There's no way that this is true. There's got to be some kind of a mistake. There's no way at a middle school earlier that same calendar year." So we were talking about a potential event in October, November timeframe in 2023. This mom comes up and says, "Hey, there was this potential shooter. My daughter was on a kill list." And I believe April of 2023 at the same school, referencing Columbine. I'm like, oh my gosh, like everybody in the audience, and you'll see it in just a second in the clip, was just floored by this. The information again was withheld from the public and nothing really happened.
Well, the student, the would-be shooter, was suspended but allowed back within the school district.
They were allowed back for the next year. So in April, there's not a lot of time left in the school year. So they're going on to high school. The student was allowed to come back into high school. And this is where the secondary problem, but probably one of the bigger problems in this entire thing comes into play, that this girl now has to go to school with somebody who had on a kill list.
Well, and the woman said that her child was so afraid that they don't actually go to school anymore.
No.
So this is a good example of it.
And she
not a good example. It's a horrible example of it negatively affecting a student who did nothing wrong.
Go to the high school. This woman, Emily's daughter, finds out about this situation, that this student is now back in the school, by walking around a corner and seeing her in the hallway.
Who named her as someone to kill.
Notified. Parents were... Emily wasn't notified that this child was going to be at the school. Nobody was told about it. Parents were not told about it at the time. That's twice in one calendar year that a situation like this existed where somebody wanted to recreate Columbine and parents weren't told.
And nobody would have known about this if you actually didn't speak with Emily.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the new information here, a new police report that we have. Here actually is Emily, who was voicing her concerns specifically to the Chippewa board.
With the fact that this incident in October was not the first one. There was an incident that happened in spring of 2023 that was not made aware to parents. As I am the parent of one of those children that was on that manifesto, these parents had no idea of that. I was told that it was going to be addressed because this individual student was allowed to come back to the school.
Yeah, you heard their reaction. Nobody could believe what they had just heard Emily say.
So after this, we learned about it after several FOIA requests. Our undercover unit finally obtained the police report detailing the second incident. And like we said yesterday, this is not something, I wouldn't have kids watch this. It's disturbing, but the truth matters. This, by the way, was also hidden from parents and the communities.
She deserves to be my first student target.
Yeah.
Like those are the kinds of things. There's a lot more information in here, but those are the kinds of things where this person is specifically targeting groups of people. They're trying to recruit people that say that they're not going to help out deserve to be the first target. They're not going to get warned about the day of the attack.
Well, and remember, we asked with the first incident, the first manifesto, would-be manifesto, hey, are they recruiting people because they were looking for a sidekick? Well, we now know that with this incident, they were actively trying to.
The same way.
Because there was someone there at the school who told the police that they were asked by this would-be shooter, will you shoot up the school with me because, and the name is redacted, won't. Now, keep in mind, too, in both of these incidents, the student was specifically mentioning Columbine. Let me read you the entire paragraph from the police report in context here. I have it right here, and we'll make all of this available for you publicly. And this isn't about just what happens at Chippewa Falls, though really I think it's important for you to see the parents who are incredibly grateful who've had to live through this. The lack of transparency in our public education system and people who are in charge, they've been charged with taking care of your children, they're far more interested in politicizing incidents when it's convenient, right? You've seen this all the time. How many times have you seen there be a mass shooting and people come out and push for gun control immediately and say, well, there's nothing else will stop this except for gun control. Well, right here, we have very clear examples where more could have been done, more should have been done. The parents obviously demand that more would have been done, certainly to know if their children were being targeted. That's not in their quiver as far as tools to use. We talk about red flag laws. Think about that. We talk about infringing on your rights or your neighbor's rights to own a firearm because he takes a Xanax. When someone writes a manifesto, nobody knows about it. This is taking place in school. Yeah. Twice in one district. It's not that this is the only place. It's the only place where we caught it.
Yeah.
And then we did a little bit of digging, and we found out there was far more than we could have ever thought. There were 2 that were entirely withheld. So here's the entire paragraph. It says, in this entry, redacted makes reference to being the, quote, reincarnated Eric Harris and, quote, knows how he feels. The person states, doesn't want to shoot up the school or redacted school, but that is open. They all need to shut the fuck up. They go on to talk of stabbing someone. However, it is not clear who this person is referencing. Also mentions, fuck my dad. I hope he gets in a car crash and dies. And states that if the dad takes this person's phone, the student, that they are going to end his life. This isn't just one report. It also, by the way, does allude to the fact that the student here was in contact with members of a Discord channel, specifically for people who were fascinated with the Columbine high school shooting. That ties into, remember yesterday? Yep. We were talking about the pedophile rings on Signal and on Discord, where they don't really do a whole lot to get rid of them, but the Louder with Crowder Discord was removed. Or the Reddit because of political views. People who are talking about mass shootings, however, it depends on the political persuasion.
Exactly. And celebrating mass shootings and really elevating Eric and Dylan to kind of this cult-like God status. Mm-hmm. And it really bothered me because, again, remember, we're talking about 8th grade, right? You know, you're talking about probably a 12, 13, maybe 14-year-old age range, roughly somewhere in there, depending on when you were born and if you got held back at all. But that's very, very young. Why in the world are they talking about an event that was pre their birth by a decade, like a very long time before their birth? I understand that it was one of the most tragic and kind of most visible events like this to ever take place, and we all saw it unfold on TV. But there's a Discord group for a student who used to go to this school and kind of engage with these students and now moved out of state. Right. We know that, and this information's out there. What does it take, Discord? Like, we're not asking you to limit speech because of an opinion on a conservative political issue or a liberal political issue or abortion or anything else, but you do. What I'm asking you to do is when people say, hey, these guys are heroes, maybe one of you should do the same thing. I don't know. I don't have access to that Discord channel. I'm not exactly sure what they say, but maybe a key word could be Columbine. You know how I know the systems like that work? Because that's how we found out about this. There was a system in place at this school for their technology to make sure that if somebody looked up how to build a bomb, it flagged them. You telling me you can't do that, Discord? You telling me you can't have something like that in place to protect these kids and these parents from being radicalized by somebody out there with a desire to see death and destruction?
Yeah.
Step up.
Or at least report it to the school. And at least have some system that informs people who might be affected.
These are minors.
Yeah. I mean, I get they'll move to the dark web, but at a certain point, you go, hey, you don't have to make it that easy for them. If you're going to put in a keyword Crowder for removal, you would think that maybe pipe bomb, Columbine, awesome.
Would also
in any sequence thereafter. And we also have a supplemental sheriff's report. Gerald, you want to read from this? The school resource officer said.
Yeah, so basically, this is what happened first. So we have sheriff's report, then they reached out to the police department, local police department, then they reached out to the school resource officer Flug. And by the way, they've been, the resource officers, everybody involved there, phenomenal from what I experienced up there. No further investigation will be completed in this incident unless new information becomes available or assistance is requested by CFPD. And that's from the sheriff's report. Again, we weren't given these reports as easily as you would normally get them in a FOIA request. It actually took a little bit of time. And by the way, that the last review we had was on 4/19. These kids were talking about 4/20. That's the anniversary of the Columbine massacre, right? The Columbine shooting. That was the last thing. They texted a peer their hit list would be kind of done on 4/20. So all of these dates matter.
Right.
It's kind of the thing we discovered this last time. You had information, and for about 6 weeks on the shooter, the potential shooter in October, nothing happened other than go home.
Right.
There could have been an accomplice out, ready and willing to step up and take their place until the suspension completely, expelled, whatever. You're now out of the school until that officially took place, until this problem is removed. Nobody talked about an accomplice. Nobody talked about an accomplice here.
Right.
We just started talking about that because they said they're looking for this person as well. That's 2 people.
You know what else we don't know? We don't know if there was this kind of information before Nashville. Right. We don't know because all that now is under tight seal. Just like the manifesto was, and they tried to say that it wasn't true. You think they're going to be transparent? You think they want to be caught with their pants down? There can be no way of knowing. And especially considering what we know now of the political persuasion and how that affects school boards, how that affects mayors, how that affects what goes on in your town. It's like, well, maybe we don't want to touch this one, this third rail, because perhaps it's the marginalized group of today. Or, maybe we want to be careful because this person is maybe friends with someone at the school district. You don't know about it. We can't know. Hey, could it have been stopped? I don't know. It seems like it was relevant to the parents, the motive and the reason for the shooting taking place in Nashville, though they tried to say that the parents were being forced to relive it. And then the parents, huge portion of parents have reached out both there in Chippewa Falls saying, I wish I knew that the shooter was targeting Christians and pretty girls and conservatives.
Absolutely. One guy told me, he's like, my daughter's Christian. She's conservative. She believes in God. And this kid walked up to her, the potential shooter walked up to her and said, do you believe in God? And she said, yes. And he goes, well, there's still time to save you. I'm not kidding. That's a quote from one of these parents.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
That kind of stuff happened and they were never notified. Never notified at all. His daughter's life essentially threatened at that moment. Never notified.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, just for people watching right now, we can't make any of this happen without you. This is, like I said, it's a bigger problem than just this one school district in Wisconsin. We can't tell you how many people we've had writing in about very similar situations across the country where parents were never notified about their children being in danger. And if you are out there and you're having to deal with this, and we know that so many of you are, please let us here help be your voice. We're working on some stories right now. Reach out to us. Tell us your story. We'll do everything that we can to shine a light on it, to try and hold these people accountable because this affects everybody, especially when you have constant talking points in media of just throwing more money at it. Let me ask you this. Throwing more money at the Chippewa Falls School District, how is that going to help?
Right.
How is that going to change the protocol? How is that going to force these people to be held accountable when they don't let parents of children know who are actively being targeted, threatened at their place of school where they say it takes a village? At what point does the village cease to be of any value if you proactively set in place policies that don't protect the students? That's your primary job, just to be clear. Before we get to teaching students, the unwritten agreement is really they're not going to die in your care. Parents assume that. Right before we get to the fact that our test scores are going down, despite the fact that information is more readily available than ever, despite the fact that we have an epidemic of mental health, who could have called that one, doctors on this very show during the Mug Club lockdown quarantine month for which we were suspended on YouTube, despite the fact that we have more substance abuse issues than we have seen in recent decades. Okay, before we get to all of that, which the left says throw more money at it, throw more money at it, throw more money at it, how about ensuring that students don't die? How about starting with that? Is that a basic responsibility? Are we going to be judged by how effectively we do that? And this is going on at school districts across the country. Before we get to rubber rooms, before we get to ideas of tenure, before we get to teachers unions, before we get to superintendents being paid $250,000 a year with full benefits and never showing up to their job, before you get to the other problems, the outrageous per pupil spending with abysmal objective test scores compared to charter schools, private schools, home schools. Before we get to any of that, more students die in public schools that don't have to. And the solution, well, you can bet your ass they're going to go on air and say it's going to be gun control.
Yeah.
This shines a light. Remember, we've talked about this. The highest number, 97. The lowest number we've seen is 91% of mass shootings that take place in what? Gun-free zones. Gun-free zones. There's one constant with mass shootings that never changes, that the person is stopped by someone else with a gun, whether they are shot, whether they kill themselves, or whether they are apprehended by police officers. They're done. All of that is done at gunpoint. And then the second, well, closest to constant that we have is that these mass shootings are carried out in gun-free zones. Huge portion of them are schools. Does this provide some insight into why? It's not just that it's gun-free. It's also that it's, thwarting plot-free. It's accountability-free for the people who know better. 97 is the highest number that we've presented. 91 is the lowest. Mass shootings take place in gun-free zones. Huge portion of them are schools. Do we still need to ask why? And when this happens, do we need someone to go out there and say that a pistol grip being banned is going to change this? Think of all the failures that have taken place, and they're taking place across this entire country. It's not about this one example. I mean, it partially is. It's the one that we've caught. So please send in your stories at lwctips@protonmail.com. We've always said this. We will go to jail to protect our sources. We are happy to do this work for you. And of course, we can't do any of this without all of you supporting it. Mug Club, you can go to louderwithcrowder.com/Mug Club, use the promo code Undercover, you get $10 off. And of course, the entire network. But this is one, hey, if this work is important, we ask that you sign up. And if not, we'll keep doing what we can do.
Yeah. And let me just say one more thing. The response from Emily coming forward, it took brass balls to get up and do that, right. To get up and talk to the school board like that. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, which is great. But there has been a significant percentage of the response that has been intimidation and harassment.
Mm-hmm. Jesus.
If you have a problem with Emily, take it up with me. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. This woman's daughter is not in school because the school didn't do their job. The school board didn't do their job. The administration didn't do their job. This is a 14 or 15-year-old girl guessing by freshman age. 14 or 15-year-old is out of school because she came around a corner one day, and all of a sudden the person that threatened to kill her just months before is walking down the hallway. And you have a problem with Emily coming forward and saying that this system has failed my daughter and she is now at home because she is scared for her life? Bring that argument to me.
Yeah.
And you know what we're going to do? Mug Club, thank you. We're giving Emily the money that she needs to get her daughter help so that she can have a normal life. This is a 14-year-old kid. Yeah. You got a problem? Again, happy to take that out. I'll get on a plane. Yeah. Name the time and place.
Let me guess. From the tolerant left. You're just being a Karen. Really? You want to go armchair psychologist this and talk about gaslighting and red flags and narcissist and trauma and boundaries? Hey, hold on a second. You want to talk about PTSD because a boyfriend broke up with you? You've been on Instagram and TikTok. You see that? Mm-hmm. How about someone naming you as someone to murder? And then you run into them in the place where they planned to murder you. Stop using the term Karen if a mom's upset about that. This is the problem with buzzwords now. It's a problem with buzzwords. They just get co-opted. Yeah. Emily's daughter, well, she's fine, isn't she? Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to make the life more difficult of the people who are trying to do their job, the true heroes? Let's stop with that. Let's stop with that buzzword. True heroes? I'm not seeing that at the school board. There are some good people. There are a lot of cowards who deserve to lose their job. Deserve to lose their job and deserve to be shamed. Let's bring back shame for some of this, certainly as it relates to the protection of children. I mean, this is the era we're in, where we talk about trying to nerf the world. We talk about trying to make everything safe so that people's feelings aren't hurt. But we have made child sex trafficking more readily accessible than ever before. We have made perpetrating violence against the most vulnerable among us more readily available than ever before. We have made snuff films hardcore pornography more readily available to children. We talk about people's feelings. We need to have a safe space because someone might be offended. Hey, how about we start thinking, we used to have safe spaces. It used to be protected by men with guns. Those were safe spaces because you're dealing with an actual threat. We have it so cushy here in this country that we've lost all sight of what being safe is, and we've actually ignored the front lines of where we need to ensure the safety of our citizens and children. Feelings matter too, sure. But you know what? Trauma is created, typically speaking, or at least you can guarantee that it is, by physical violence as well. And we have more slaves on earth than ever in recorded history. Think about that for a second. We look at Diddy and we go, it's funny because he's an asshole. Yes. True. He's a talentless bag of shit. But
Sucks.
He also likely was sex trafficking.
Yeah.
We just sort of dismiss it. There's over 40 million slaves on earth, which is more than ever in history. But a lot of them are sex slaves. What does that mean? We can stop that. We can stop a good portion of that by having a border in this country. No, that's mean. That might hurt feelings. Might hurt feelings of migrants or guilty white people here who will feel like they're racist. Yeah, but hold on a second. Millions of sex slaves being trafficked. So we need a physical border to protect people who are victims of physical violence, but we don't because we want to protect the feelings of people who don't even have a dog in that fight. We really have lost sight of our priorities. Yeah. That's what this is from the Nashville Manifesto to Chippewa Falls. You go, this can't be real, and it is. Please don't put your kids in public school at this point. Please don't.
Yeah. Happy that you mentioned the Nashville Manifesto because the FBI has been ordered to turn the manifesto over to the judge for an in-person review. Because we published the story, the pressure has been applied. The FBI has to turn it over for an in-camera review for the judge, and the judge can then decide whether they're going to release the full manifesto. Finally, wonder what took you so long. I wonder what the impetus was for you guys finally getting on this to the public, the people that need that information. So again, one of the other result, Mug Club, you're not just joining for extra content, you're joining and empowering us to do things like this, empowering parents to be able to protect their kids, making sure that these communities share information that, by God, could save lives if you know who these people are targeting with the Nashville Manifesto.
And at the same time as all this is going on, what do? This is the problem with the neutering of males. We say, you have anger issues. Yeah, there's a problem if someone has actual anger issues. That's not the same as a father getting angry because the safety of their children was compromised.
Right.
That's a dad's job. That's a husband's job. That's the men of the community's job.
Damn right.
To get mad. And you know what? You want good men to get mad. And when they get mad, you know what you want good men to do? You want them to get intensely violent. You want good men to get angry and very violent. Do you know how I know that? We've wanted that since the beginning of time. We wanted good men who were capable of extreme, almost unprecedented violence. That would be preferable. Unprecedented violence, because we know that our good guy is going to be more violent than their bad guys and keep us safe. And instead we say it's toxic masculinity. I understand that. Put it this way. You know what actual toxic masculinity would be? Harming the most vulnerable among you. It can't be toxic if you're protecting what you have actually been designed to protect. Can't say designed. I did. You want men to get mad. You don't want a society where men don't get mad. What do you want? You want a society where men whine? Where men backstab? Where they protect themselves like we see in Chippewa Falls or Nashville with that mayor? To call him a wet noodle would be a gross affront to noodles that are wet?
I prefer my noodles wet.
Depends. I don't know. Sometimes if it's too wet, sometimes people they don't do it al dente.
Al dente.
It gets mushy.
I forgot Josh was in the Royal Guard.
I'm on duty.
There you go. He's on duty. He's protecting us because we trust Josh with violence. But we just create these categories now, and this is why we've lost sight. Violence bad, peace good. No. Peace can be evil, and violence can be righteous. Money bad, poverty good. No. I've met poor people who are completely entitled, ungrateful pricks, and I've met rich people who are some of the most generous people I know. Also vice versa. Man bad, woman good. No. I've met plenty of bad women and plenty of good men. And I met plenty of bad men and plenty of good women. Let's get rid of black good, white bad. Ooh, careful with that one. Black good, white bad. Trans good, cis bad. No. Your actions define you. And the way our actions have shifted in this country are defining us in a way that I think we're all concerned about. For the first time, genuinely, and you can I said this before, but for the first time in my lifetime, I worry. I worry when I see these stories. I worry that we may be on the wrong side of history on a lot. We may be on the wrong side of history as it relates to sex changes and hormones being pumped into kids. We may be on the wrong side of history where you have other nations that we know are corrupt are mocking our elections as being corrupt, where we have no leg to stand on and it's hard for me to argue with them. We're on the wrong side of history in forcing people to take experimental medication. We're on the wrong side of history in trying to turn our military from an effective fighting force of violence to a social petri dish. We're on the wrong side of history in throwing more money at problems and not teaching our children how to be good stewards. How do you teach your children to be good stewards of what they've been given and then tell them that the teachers in public schools are the true heroes? How do you do that? Kids can't reconcile those things. Kids are smart enough to see the hypocrisy. And without a through line, everyone's a hypocrite. But right now, it's nothing but hypocrisy. I don't know. I don't know if there's any coming back from this. I don't know if there's any coming back from this outside of good men capable of intense violence and directing it properly. That means to external, because that's let's be honest, that's the role of government. That's the central role of government, is to protect you from external threats or internal threats. Basically, we have a police force and we have the military to make sure other people don't come in, break your stuff, steal it, and enslave you, and to make sure that people within our country don't break stuff, enslave you, and steal it. Yes. That's really the fundamental role of government, not this. Not solar panel infrastructure and not school boards that don't notify parents of not one, but two potential mass shootings where their children are named. So I don't want to get all intense on you, and we'll talk about P. Diddy, and I'm sure we've got a lot of shit there that's fun, but sometimes we're too close, and you look at you like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
It's not an isolated incident. I feel like we could just look anywhere on a map in the United States, pick a school district, and you would find half a dozen of these examples.
And that's why the school board feels like that they did nothing wrong.
Yep.
Right.
They're right on par with the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean I did something wrong? No, every other school district's doing the same thing.
Exactly. That's our problem.
Yeah.
That's our problem. And we've heard from parents across the country reaching out and saying, hey, similar situation here, similar situation here. Let us amplify that. I told them in that school board meeting what Emily said would be told to America the next morning. It happened.
There you go.
America knows about it.
Well,
Keeping our promises.
we're grateful.
Watch Slider with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.